Welcome to What Not to Do. I'm Kyle Schmitz, and this is episode 11. I've got Jordan Ogren with me today, and if you asked him, he'd tell you, lose all your friends. Don't keep any of them, but you should listen to the haters. Well, when he was 20 years old, he stared death in the face. Curious? You should be. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right. I am at Copper State Brewing with my friend Jordan. And I didn't ask you, Jordan. I don't know how to pronounce your last name. How do you pronounce it?
Ogren.
You're supposed to do this before you start recording. But I've got Jordan Ogren with me. Ogren, excuse me.
Ogren, yep.
And he hails from the UP.
Which
is fun. We might have some mutual acquaintances, but had some friends up in the UP back in the day, and fun place. Escanaba in the moonlight.
Yep.
I'm sure you'll love all the jokes, but good stuff, man. But before we get into a few questions, I'm curious, what are you drinking?
Oh, man. Some tea, some Rishi tea, I think.
Okay.
Green tea.
Nice. Are you a no caffeine guy? Well, no, green tea has caffeine in it. Are you a coffee guy or tea guy?
I already had 2-3 cups, so I'm trying to not be up too late tonight.
Nice. I've been drinking coffee since I was in diapers, and it's still like I could drink a pot of coffee before bed and and be fine.
Mm-hmm.
The caffeine, I've never drank the caffeine for the pick me up. I just really enjoy the flavor.
Okay.
But I'm anticipating that the day is probably coming when I won't be able to drink a pot of coffee before bed without trying to go take over the world then, or something like that.
Right.
Well, cool, man. Well, Jordan, why don't you give our listeners just a bit about who you are, where you hail from. You can kind of expand on that, and a bit about kind of what you do.
Okay.
Yeah, talk to us.
I am 24. I'm 24 years old. I currently work as a marketing specialist for Stop the Vanilla. I'm from Escanaba, Michigan. I was born in Kaukauna, Wisconsin, though, so I am a cheesehead due to birth. But yeah, I grew up in Escanaba, was a sore thumb, didn't do anything outdoors, was very different compared to everyone around there. So when I got the chance to go move, I decided Green Bay is probably more like me in a sense, and even being here, it's a big city, but not as big as I am hoping for.
Well, and unless our listeners are aware of this dynamic, I mean, you guys come to Green Bay to shop. That's about a 2-hour drive, and so you guys will take a day and hit Green Bay and Appleton, Bay Park Square, Fox River Mall. You'll kind of make the trek in the outlet stores in Oshkosh. So, it's a real thing. Not that Escanaba is a tiny town, but just to kind of give listeners a bit of a dynamic, Green Bay is kind of the biggest city in proximity to Esky. So
it's our weekend vacation tour. So now though it's so interesting in the 2-3 years I've been here, how small it's gotten now as you live here. But when I first came, it was whoa, there's 2 different Burger Kings or whatever in a sense, where back home there's only one or none for some things. So it's been a cool experience. I currently I went to NWTC, got a degree in digital media technology.
Nice.
And now I'm going to UW-GB for marketing, actually.
Awesome.
So,
very, very cool.
Yeah, excited.
That's a blast, man. And you have a fiance.
Yes.
That means you're engaged.
Yes.
I'm assuming that means there's a date somewhere.
Oh, man, we get asked that quite a bit. It happened on Christmas, so we're still in the early stages of when, but it's probably spring of 21.
Cool. What a gift. What a Christmas gift, right?
Definitely.
And that was this past Christmas, 2019?
Yep.
Very cool.
Yep.
So how did you meet your fiance?
So we were both lifeguards, so a little bit of the Bay Beach style.
Nice.
And we kind of knew each other for a while, but never talked much. And then the last summer before she graduated, and I was moving to Green Bay, she kind of just approached me, and it was kind of ever since there. A lot of things had been happening in my life at that point. In high school, I was more of probably a player or whatever you would describe. At that time, I was very focused on my career. So how she came about, it was just perfect in a sense of there was no force. It just happened. We both were determined in a sense, and that's kind of what I then at that point was looking for less of my old school kind of like looks or other things. But not saying she's not beautiful, but she's very much more beautiful on the inside, which is awesome.
That's so cool, man. Yeah, it's interesting. I've heard it said, kind of when you're looking for a spouse, like you should just, whatever your mission is, whatever you're running towards, you should just be full sprint ahead. And eventually at some point you'll look around, and if someone's keeping pace with you, it's probably good. So you had mentioned before we pressed play that she was also very driven and ambitious, and maybe a future move, who knows, to a bigger city, expanding the options, which is really, really exciting. So that's cool. So tell us a little bit about what it is that you do now, and how did you get here? So why marketing? Why digital marketing? Why are you doing what you're doing? Or excuse me, well, not why yet. We'll get to that. What are you doing now?
So I do all the marketing, podcasts, videos, campaigns, all of that stuff. Kind of the reason behind it was I enjoy making content, so I thought, why not get paid to make content?
Yeah.
So that's what I kind of do on a daily basis. I record our Stop the Vanilla podcast, any kind of like outbound marketing. We're a small firm, so I kind of do some sales, some marketing, really getting a quote-unquote MBA through this program, which is really cool to kind of experience. Like, we changed our name, we're now trying to do new like offerings and services, so it's super cool to be in that. And like actually get to meet with the founder of it and talk like, what is he thinking? Why did he make this decision? I don't plan to create my own business, but like I am well prepared to with this whole experience, which is awesome.
Hey, this is Kyle. Well done on your decision today to be great. Those are my kiddos in the background. Hey, if you want more of this kind of content, find me on social media. We'll keep the conversation going. You can hit me up on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, at StartWithWNTD. Again, at StartWithWNTD. We'll see you there.
Yeah, man, like, nothing against folks that want to get an MBA for sure, but it seems like in this day and age, unless it has like Harvard attached to it, like MBAs are almost more for like what they can gain you just by like the name on the piece of paper versus what you actually gain in the time. It seems like from a substance standpoint, you'd be better off doing what you're doing, getting paid in a sense to learn almost like an apprenticeship style, which could be a much more like thorough and much more relevant and applicable place to actually get that mastery, if you will. So that's awesome, man. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, it's a blessing.
And I love the name Stop the Vanilla. So, like, what's the... I have some ideas of what that means, but kind of unpack that maybe for our listeners and for me, like, Stop the Vanilla. Like, what's up with that?
So, obviously, when you go to an ice cream parlor, your first pick probably isn't vanilla. It's going to be mint chocolate. It's going to be something different. So, the founder wrote a book called Stop Selling Vanilla Ice Cream. So, he'd be working with companies, and he'd be like, you got to stop selling vanilla. You got to sell, something unique, something differentiated. So, he wrote that book. And then the business was called Stop Selling for a while. And then he just recently finished his second book that's going through the publishing, which is Stop Living Vanilla Ice Cream. And that's for like there's a statistic, 12.7% of the population are passionate about what they do. So that means 80% are just going to work every day. They're not passionate. So he really wanted to kind of go out and help, because he'd be doing a leadership development process with 12 leaders, and he'd realize 4 or 5 of them would be like, this isn't what I want to do. I'm an accountant, but my skills are not in this. So he kind of created that. So we're like, what do we name us? And we're like, well, Stop Selling, Stop Living. Let's just do Stop the Vanilla to encompass really anything. I could write one on Stop Marketing Vanilla. It's a little bit out of a kind of niche, but still kind of a bigger brand umbrella for whatever we want to do in the future.
Yeah, that's so awesome, man. I mean, yeah, so if I'm understanding it right, it came from a concept that he was using to consult with businesses, like as far as what they were selling to differentiate themselves in the market. But then he realized, wait, this applies to all of life. I mean, this applies to everything. Like the vanilla is a gorilla; it's massive, right? Right? And we want to try to conquer that, not only in helping other companies, but helping individuals, helping their employees, helping people just in general not be okay with just the bland average, but really lean into what they're good at and finding ways where they can actually get paid to do that, right? By bringing value to other people through what they do well. Am I hearing that right?
Yeah, that's right on.
That's awesome. Well, that's so cool. So And maybe, well, I'll put this in the show notes, but where can people find that book?
It's on Amazon and our website, stopthevanilla.com.
Cool. Awesome. So we'll have that in the show notes for you guys who want to pick a copy of that and be inspired to learn more about that and maybe reflect on it in your own life.
Definitely.
That you can move from vanilla to at least chocolate.
Right. You know? Something better than vanilla.
Java chip, something. Make it dance a little bit. Come on.
Right.
Cool. Well, so this is one of my favorite questions, Jordan, but I know that you appreciate Simon Sinek, and this kind of has that idea behind it. But like, why, man? Like, why do you keep waking up every day and giving your life to marketing, to digital strategy, to stop the vanilla? Like, what's the pulse in you that keeps you beating to want to be able to inspire people towards this end? Why do you do what you do?
Well, why I wake up is to feed my cat because it won't stop meowing till I do that. But
punching you in the face.
right. Shoving its rear end into my face. But so
that's what not to do. Is don't have a cat.
That's a good. Yeah, a dog's much better. No. So for me, I went to college right out of high school, going for an athletic trainer.
Yeah.
I was like, I did basketball. You know, I like helping people. I must be an athletic trainer.
Right.
Terrible idea. But through that process, I failed. I kind of got school understanding like how to actually get A's, and then I took a semester off about a year and a half in. I was just like, this isn't it. I don't feel passionate about what I'm doing. Let me just take a semester off. My brother at the time, who lives in Green Bay, he had a child, and he's bipolar, so like he was going through a lot at that time, so he moved back home with us. He was living at my grandma's house, so I was like, well, and my grandma wasn't there, so I was like, well, semester off, I could go live with him, maybe try to be there for him.
Yeah.
So I kind of, at that point, took a parent role in a sense. I would go to work, he would stay home every day, I'd come home, make dinner, whatever. So I really started to get more of that parental adult as a 20-year-old, you know, you're still kind of a teenager at that point. So I went to work one day, it was probably 3-4 months into living with him, and I was a lifeguard at the time, and I got a text from him, and he said, hey, I appreciate everything you did for me, but I'm going to take my life. So I had like an hour and a half left in my shift, and I couldn't leave because there's only one lifeguard on duty. My supervisor wasn't there, so I think like I left a little early, and I quickly go home, and he's on the ladder, rope around his neck, and I climb up there, and in that moment, like when our eyes connected and I was like, get down, like I just saw myself there, because at the time, like I wasn't doing anything to not kind of, I was partying, doing all the same things he did, and he's about 10 years older than me, so I saw myself on that ladder. So from that point on, every day I wake up and I'm trying not to get myself there, but every single person I come into interaction with, I want to make sure that I know they're going through things, and like I don't think a passionate life's going to solve every issue, but just to like be on the right path. So like my why in a sense of the Simon Sinek is to help people kind of like be better today than they were yesterday, but really just be like in that sense of like a reason to persevere, help them in a sense find their why, like find their reason to live.
Wow. So that's amazing. So just to clarify, did your brother actually take his life, or did you?
No, he is still alive today.
Wow.
So,
wow, and that event radically changed the course of your life, naturally. Seeing yourself there, and now you're helping to try to take the proverbial noose off the neck of folks that are just living a vanilla life in a sense, right? And they don't see it, or they feel something, they don't know what to do about it. What's your brother doing? How's he doing?
He's doing better. Still kind of just struggling with the whole bipolar, but he's in a much better place, like just being there for his son now and such.
Yeah.
So
wow, man, that's awesome. That is an amazing why. Wow, very cool.
Hey, so you're still listening, which means you like it? I think so. If you do, share this with somebody else who you think would not only like it, but be helped by it, and join us in our mission to make the world be great.
Yeah, wow, we were just chatting off record, but what a gift. What a gift to be given, to be taught the preciousness of life at such a young age. Really cool to see how that lit such a fire in you, and to zoom in and focus and just go after life hard, which is cool. When I was 24 years old, Or you were about 20 at that time, right?
Yep, 20.
Yeah, I mean, I had my head up some interesting crevices myself, and even when I was 24, man. But yeah, so cool. What a gift. It's awesome. And so you've been running hard, doing some really, really cool things, and the best is yet to come, right? So as you kind of reflect over your story, your career to this point, what are some things that you did right? Like, what are some decisions that you really made that were right and really helped to launch you down this path towards the success that you have and the success that you hope to attain?
I think one of the things I did right was set a vision. That's something that we do through the Stop Living vanilla ice cream process, but really just be like, how do I want to be remembered in my professional life, my personal, financially, spiritually, whatever that is, and then more or less reverse engineering myself to here, which I guess can branch off into just being better with time management. That's something that a lot of my age people I don't think really understand is like, you don't have kids yet, you don't have, all these responsibilities to be like, I'm going to block my whole day off so I can have like, here's 2 hours to do this, here's an hour to do that, where once you have kids or other things, then you're like, that's the only way I can survive. So I've really done that in a sense earlier in my career of just prioritizing things for that vision. So certain people, go to the bars on Friday night. For me, that's not an option due to where my vision is leading me. So I don't judge people for that, but if you don't have a vision, wherever the wind and the sea pushes you, you're going to go if you're not trying to get to some sort of island. So that's one of the things I did right that I've seen my mentors and other people do is set a vision and go for that.
Yeah, maybe part of the vanilla in life that so many people experience is that drive for instant gratification over against delayed gratification, right? So like they don't make the sacrifices today for the life that they really want, and it might be because they don't really know what they really want, right? And maybe that's why vanilla is the default, is because a lot of people just aren't clear of what they want in life. They don't really know what the long game is, what the long play is. They haven't reverse engineered that to try to get to where they want to be, and it's affecting how they live now. And another way to say it is maybe that inescapably we all start with the end in mind, right? It's just how clear is that end, right? And if that quote unquote end in mind is I don't know, then what do you do today? I don't know. I guess we might as well go out to the bars, right?
Right.
Crazy, man. Cool. What else did you do right?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. I'm so young. I feel like I'm always trying to, like, I feel like one of the things I did right was really set, I guess, like off the whole vision. Just like I asked a lot of people, where do you see yourself in 10, 15 years? And they just don't have that. And I think one of the things I've done right off of that is kind of like prioritize. So like have my top 5 per se, and like really I guess this is the whole decision making is like the priorities of like myself is maybe one in a sense, and like that sometimes can be like, oh, that's selfish or whatever, but I feel like if you ask me for a $15,000 check, I'm starting this thing, I need this, and I say yeah, I can cash that, but I don't have that in the bank account, it's not going to work. So I think that's like what meditation, all these things I do, is it's putting money in the bank, so then when someone's like, hey, I need $5,000, I need whatever, I'm able to give that. And I guess like in the Enneagram, I'm a 2, so I'm a helper. So like to be able to be a helper, you have to have yourself right, because if you're not, then you're just going to be empty, you're going to give all the time. So I feel like that's one of the things I did right, is I found early on, whether through like people I follow or whatever, that like meditation, journaling, reading, like all these things are so important for myself, so then I can be better for others.
Yeah, that's a good, man. Yeah, I mean, I think that sometimes people kind of set up a straw man when you say like, hey, focus on yourself. That anyone who says that or does that automatically is being selfish. I actually agree more with you that I think it's one of the most selfless things a person can do, because if you can't provide just for yourself, how could you provide for a wife and a family? If you can't govern yourself, how could you govern a team of people? If you can't lead yourself, how could you lead a team of people at work, right? Or even bigger, right? if you can't stay disciplined or organize yourself, like how could you help other people to become organized in this way? So I think it's like when you think of it, I guess the way that I think of it is like concentric circles, right? And you yourself you're on that inner circle, right? And then you work out from there to greater and greater realms of responsibility and influence. But if that center is destroyed, if it's weak and crumbling, then like, what are you going to do? Nothing, right? So that's really interesting. So, priorities are huge, and making sure that you're actually not neglecting yourself. If you don't have bread for yourself, you don't have bread to get, right? Like that's cool. How would you expand on that at all?
Like on...
All right, well, just on that idea of... I mean, you can't help others unless you help yourself in that sense, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things basing off that is self-awareness, too, of like, you can't really be aware of others if you're not first aware of self,
right.
Whether that's emotions, whether that's like, so helping people find their passion, I think you have to be self-aware to then help them also find their self in a sense. So I do think it all starts with you, and I think like what you said about leading, like you can't lead others if you can't lead self first.
Yeah.
Steve, the founder, wrote an article on that of like leading self.
Nice.
So, and I guess that's like comes easy to me because I'm in that environment where we teach leaders how to do that, but I know a lot of people, they want to lead others before they're leading themselves, and that's a recipe for disaster, I think.
Totally. Yeah, totally. Yeah, what good are you to the world if you fall over dead, right? From neglecting yourself, either, in mind, body, or spirit, right? So, cool. That's awesome, man. All right, so this podcast is called What Not to Do. And here's that magical moment where you get to look back, in your life and say, okay, if I could have this, that, and the other thing back, I would gladly do it over again. So as you kind of, scan the landscape of your journey, your story, personally, professionally, what's, one or two failures that kind of rise to the top? That's where I was like, man, if I could have that back again. Or if I could keep someone else from making that same, from failing in that same way, I'd gladly do it.
So one specific instance that comes to mind is we had just gone to Orlando. My boss gave a speech to some veterinarian clinic group, and I had recorded the video and all that, and I had it on a hard drive. And it's, I always preach, back that up. And I guess, like, in my job, like, I have so much autonomy that sometimes you can let that get your head in a sense of, like, I'll do that tomorrow, or, like, leaving early and all these things. So it was a Friday, and I was, like, pulling my hard drive in and out of a computer, and all of a sudden, like, it made, like, a really weird noise, and it crashed, and it was repairable. And I lost like 1.4 terabytes of information. So I guess in that failure, I really realized like my self-awareness was not where I thought it was, because I'm not detail at all. Like I'm like to be detailed, it takes time. Like to do the time blocks, to do all the things that I do in my life, it's like energy, because I'm more of like an emotional, let's just go with the flow kind of guy. So it really made me realize like that's a huge blind spot of mine. Like I need to put on my calendar Friday afternoon, you're backing this up, or whatever that is in a sense, and not take like my job at the current moment like for granted. Like it was such a interesting opportunity to be in. Like I'm going to Orlando, I'm shooting all these, I'm meeting these cool people, like not to take that for granted and just kind of like kick it to the side and be like, oh, it's whatever. So that was a big wake-up call, and I almost lost my job, so it was a huge wake-up call in that
1.4 terabytes.
Yeah, it was a lot of stuff.
So, and a terabyte is 1,000 gigabytes, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, just if folks aren't technical-minded, they probably understand what a gigabyte is, and that's a lot of info.
Yeah, it was.
So how would you say that in a way, how would you phrase it in a way of what not to do? Like, don't do this.
I think don't let your ego get the best of you in a sense and think like, oh, this is, always going to be the way. Like, I know what I'm doing. I'm pretty young, so like that's, I think, probably a young person thing, is you let that ego get in the driver's seat instead of being more disciplined and being more like, I know I'm not good at this, so I'm going to go out of my way to make sure I'm doing that. And I guess don't avoid self-awareness. Like, however you want to gain that, asking people around you. Like, I could ask my dad, and he would have told me, like, yeah, you never cleaned your room. You were very not, like, disciplined in the small things, and then so I guess be more disciplined to avoid that. My dad always said that, how you do this is going to be how you do everything. And I was like, no, they're different buckets, but slowly leaks over of like, if I'm not going to go hard in that, then I'm not going to go hard here. I'm just doing everything to 100%.
All right, I'm curious. You tell me, which entrepreneur, which leader, which public figure do you want to hear from? Who do you want to sit down with me, not only share their successes, but lean into their failures? Why? To help equip you for success. Send me a note, tag them in this, have them reach out to me, and the sky's the limit. Let's go. Let's get who you want on what not to do.
So you're saying by not backing up, by losing 1.4 terabytes in that sense, really what at the root, if you were to kind of follow it all the way down, at the root of that was ego. I was thinking like, hey, I got this. I preach, back it up, but I got this. I'm Jordan. It'll get done when it gets done, and no big deal. I'm never gonna lose information. It'll just be fine. And that's interesting because it seems like people might not even want to call that ego, right? And it's amazing how sometimes we can be our own worst enemies and kind of like self-sabotage in that sense. But we wouldn't necessarily consider ourselves like having this big ego. But just to neglect a simple task that would have taken probably not all that long, and like you said, to have it blocked off on the calendar, helps us to keep our blind spots in check, in a sense. Yeah. Is that kind of how, am I tracing it right?
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. Yeah. It's a good lesson. Don't let your ego get in the way. So, cool, man. What else?
I think the biggest thing for me, being only 24, so like I'm still young, like really just sitting back of like, what do I want to do? Because like I went to even the digital media technology career, like it's kind of like a waste of a year and a half. I learned a little bit, but like I just was going too fast in a sense. I started listening to Gary Vee. I started listening to all these guys. I'm like, let me just do, which is so good. Like you can't.
Grant Cardone?
I've read his 10X book. So like all of those guys are pushing like just go out and do things, which is great. But like I wish I would have just took a step back and like what you were saying off the record of like, I love to conversate with people, like figuring out like what are Jordan's strengths, like what does he do better than others, or what do I enjoy doing better than others, and then like what are my passions, like what fires me up in the morning, what do I like to do that others just are like, what would I write a book on, like all these questions I could have asked myself to be like content. That's like my thing. I love content. Okay, well I want to market that content instead of like just really going fast without knowing that. I think that could have saved me a lot of time in a sense, because I've read Malcolm Gladwell, the 10,000 hours. I don't know if it's per se 10,000 exactly, but it's still like that mindset of like, if I could have had 4 more years doing what I'm doing right now, I'd be 4 more years further. So that's one of my kind of failures in a sense, was I didn't start early enough of like really getting in this mindset that I'm now in. And I think there's certain things that life happens to make you do it, but if I could go back, I would definitely get more determined of like, I want to be a chief marketing officer. Okay, how do we get there? I want to be whatever that goal is. Let's get there.
Yeah, so maybe a good way to phrase that is don't fly blind. Like you do need to take action, and you do take massive action, but massive action in the complete wrong direction, what good is that, right? And so you don't want to and I know those guys can, Gary Vee, Grant Cardone, they've got such good stuff out there. I mean, Simon Sinek mentioned before, Malcolm Gladwell, a lot of really, really good stuff out there. Seth Godin, right? But if we just let that kind of drive us impulsively just to go do, without having any kind of long-term vision, right? Going back to what you had mentioned, one of the things we had done, right? What are we doing? Like, and what's the old saying? Like, if you don't know where you're going, anywhere it'll take you there, type of thing. And it's kind of like, man, if I didn't know where I was going, but I kind of just jumped in here and did stuff. In another sense, you learned, right? And you might not have gotten to where you are today had you not done that. But would readily counsel someone else saying, hey, just get really clear on where it is you're going to go, and then yes, go all in, right? Mm-hmm. Would you say that's a good way to say it? Is don't fly blind, or how would you phrase it?
Yeah, I mean, don't fly blind in a sense of like, I feel like we live in a generation, my generation, where it's like we have so much opportunity.
Yeah.
You know, we can do whatever we want without being like really self-aware. Yeah. I have a lot of friends that are doing things, and it's like, that's just not you, but like, you can do it because, you know, your mom and dad have enough resources or whatever. So I think like, yeah, it's don't fly blind in the sense of like, gain self-awareness as quickly as possible. I think Socrates said the unexamined life is not worth living.
For sure.
I don't know if it's as extreme as that, but I do think if we don't examine ourselves and understand ourselves, then what are we really doing on this planet?
Yeah, because otherwise we're just drifting, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah, don't fly blind, not only with the direction you're heading, but with the state of the pilot, right? Mm-hmm. Yourself, right? That's good. Cool, man. Is there, as you're looking back, is there a third failure that you would really want to share to help avoid others, or what are you thinking? Anything else?
Nothing that comes to mind, I think.
You heard it here. Jordan's only made 2 failures in his entire life. It's amazing.
Perfectionist, no.
No, that's cool, man. This is really good stuff. Really helpful. Yeah, I think. Well, and you just mentioned it a second ago. Sometimes you'd want these back, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes we have to go through the pain of learning, right? In the intro episode, we talked how you can view fear as a friend or a foe. And it can, that fear, failure can be viewed as a friend or a foe. And if we choose to view it as a friend, it can be that mentor, that coach, that trainer to help us get through to a place of maturity, right? Mm-hmm. So we move through the failure. We don't stop at the failure, right? We don't treat the failure as if it were a foe to run away from, but as a trainer who's helping us to push through. But as you're looking back, like, how would you, what would you do differently? You know, and some of the things that you shared. Or another way to think about it, you've got a guy who's, you know, just graduating high school, and he's like, Jordan, like, I love what you're doing. I see your stuff on LinkedIn, man. Like, I love the way you think. I need help. Like, can we grab coffee? Can I buy a cup of coffee, and can I just pick your brain? What counsel would you give him and advice looking back in your own journey to help him avoid some of the failures that you shared?
I want to make a video on this topic, but I would tell him to lose all of his friends. I think, like, or her. I think one of the biggest things was, like, my friends were really not helpful, and then when the whole thing with my brother happened, like, I really got kind of a draining or a pruning of friends because only 2 people were like, yeah, I'll still come hang out with you. You know, I'll still, you know, come to your place because you can't come to the parties anymore. So that really helped me because prior I had so many friends. I was pretty popular, but like none of my friends were going anywhere. Yeah. So like it's hard to change yourself if your environment is not conducive. So I'd really kind of, that's one of the quickest ways I think you can get your mind right is just really like being like, who is going forward and who's holding me back, and doing it in a polite way of like, hey, unless you're coming with me, like, we're just going to have to be acquaintances. I can't keep giving you time and my energy.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. That's actually another what not to do, right? In a sense, don't keep your friends. And what you mean by that is take an honest look. I mean, take an honest look at who's around you. Mm-hmm. And what's the saying, you know, we're the average of the 5 people that we spend the most time with.
Yep.
Wherever we're at in a given point of life, you know, like, in a sense, within reason, Jordan's not advertising or saying you should go hack off every relationship. But take an honest look, especially when you're single. Mm-hmm. Where are these people going, right? And is it really where I want to be, right? Am I really maxing out my capacity and my potential here, or am I wasting it all, right? And if the people around me are wasting it, then it's likely I am too, or at least not being pushed on by my community, by the folks that I'm with, to really go further faster, right? Mm-hmm. That's awesome, man. Yeah, well said.
Well, it is one of my main goals to give you more in use value than what I take from you in cash value. And so, man, I love that this podcast is for free. And I really hope that you are finding just incredible value. Who knows, maybe in one of these episodes, you'll take an idea that will be worth $1 million to you. And that's so awesome. If you believe in this and what we're doing here and you'd like to give, You can go to patreon.com/whatnotttodo, and you can give according to your heart's desire. But seriously, every little bit helps in our mission to equip the world for success. Thank you so much.
All right, so I love the analogy of life being like a big garden, right? And our environments are really paramount to our flourishing, right? So if we think of ourselves as like a seed, we're planted, at birth, and we grow, and we have this aim. The promise of the seed, if it's a rose, then the promise of the rose is wrapped up in that seed, right? And given the right exposure to rain and to sun, it's going to grow and blossom and be beautiful, right? And fulfill its purpose. I think human life is like that, but it does highlight the importance of, that look what we have wrapped up with inside of us. Each of us have unique gifts and abilities and skills, and we can grow in a certain context, in a certain environment. Contingent that the environment's a good one, right? Because a bad environment of no sun, no water, nothing, that rose probably isn't going to flourish, right? And we'd be right to say it's not beautiful, it's ugly, exactly. So assuming that no one wants to be ugly, we all want to be able to grow and flourish and accomplish our purpose in life. Environment's huge, right? So I'm curious, like in who in your life, to this point, has had that kind of massive impact or influence in your formation. It could be someone that is someone that that you've actually been with flesh and blood, but it could also be someone that you've digested, you love their books, their lectures, whatever it might be, someone you've never met, but they've been so formative. It could also be a negative example, right? Someone who told you in a previous interview here, I had someone who told me, or a guest that said that they were told when they were young that there would never be anything in life, and that was a turning point for them to become something, right? Which is amazing. So with that kind of all set in mind, Jordan, I'm curious, like who in your life has had that biggest impact in your formation?
I mean, I think it's definitely got to be my father. Just from not even what he's taught me a lot, but how he's lived his life just has been very easy to try to replicate my life. Early on, he came from broke, very poor. So early on, I didn't understand that hey, there's a reason my dad can't play catch with me right now. He's working. And my other brother, it's an interesting how life is one kind of thing, but we all have different perceptions of it. How he perceived that as no, he didn't put family first, and how I saw that was he put family first by doing that. So for me, not having a family yet, I really have started to become more like him, and how he puts the right things first, how he makes his faith a priority, and things like that. So I've really gained a lot from him just by watching him in conversations, listening to him.
Yeah, that's so cool. And it goes back to our conversation earlier talking about concentric circles and really making sure that you're focusing, that you're making yourself a priority in your own development and health and growth. Because if you aren't developing health and growth, how could you help somebody else? And that's interesting because I agree. I think sometimes in our day and age, we, as important as family is, sometimes we make it too important in the sense of at the expense of our means to provide for our families, our mission in life altogether, and being really focused on your mission, and if it's growing a business or whatever it might be, isn't necessarily at odds with providing for the family and having a family life that flourishes. I think it actually really complements and harmonizes with that, assuming we have the priorities right in that sense. It's not uncommon for folks to, I think, mix that up in our day and age. That's really neat that you see that and have come to really be thankful for your father and then become like him, right?
Yeah.
That's cool. That's awesome, man. All right, so this is kind of a fun question. Let's say you're hacking away at Copper State, working on the latest, greatest, vanilla, and you hear Bob over at table 7 tell his buddy, Pete, hey man, you should go do this. And you hear it. You're not trying to eavesdrop, but you hear it, right? And you stop, you freeze. You can feel the adrenaline start to pump through your body. The hair on the back of your neck stands up. You cringe, and you're like, that's the worst advice I've ever heard, right? And you want to get up and go take your bat and be like, Bob, let me teach you a lesson, buddy. Don't do this.
Definitely.
So either now or at some point in your life, man, what's the worst advice you've heard?
This is a split, but I'm going to go with the one I think could be more beneficial. I hear it a lot on LinkedIn and different platforms. It's like, don't listen to the haters, like whatever to the haters. And I think like a lot of times it's people who are not self-aware that are saying that, because there's actually people that are haters that are trying to help them in life. For a while I was trying to be the next Metro Booming beat producer and whatever, and I could say like my dad and all these people were haters, don't listen to them, like they're telling me to do other things. But I think for me it was like, with everything in life, a lot of the concept we talk about, it's not black and white. It's not 100% work. It's like you have to, it's a gray in life, I think. And I think the same is with the haters, right? The negative comments on your video, your podcast, it's like, yeah, don't obviously read them and be like, I need to change because of it, but like there's going to be some nugget of truth in there. And I think my dad and older people would probably say my culture is very soft. We're very, like, we get upset over little things. So it's like, that's kind of a quick defense of like, don't listen to the haters. Like, they're just trying to bring you down. But it's like, what if there is some so I've had, as youngest child, I've definitely been the softest of my family. And so I've really gotten better at criticism and feedback and all this stuff. There actually might be some solid nuggets of, hey, they're trying to help me. This whole podcast, he's done something that he sees me trying to do the same, and he's like, hey, let me try to give you advice. And they may not say that in that way, so we're like, oh, that's haters. Right. But I feel a lot of people are just doing the same thing, banging their head against the wall, because they're not listening to the haters or really anybody that isn't praising them of yeah, dude, make your own business at 21. You totally know. Because I made an article about that, the average founder, of tech startups or just startups in general, is 45. So obviously you're going to gain a lot by trying to be a business owner at 20, but so many times I don't think we're realistic, and we aren't, because we're not listening to every force that's, we're claiming some are haters or some are negative, and it's maybe, but I also think we need to be more open to some of that negative feedback and trying to have that change what we're doing a little bit.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, really well said. I think, so don't confuse haters with people that are trying to give you constructive criticism. Mm-hmm. And I think you don't get gray without black and white, right? Yeah. So I look at black and white as the parameters, and then gray's in the middle, right? It's you literally don't get gray if you don't have black and white, right? Mm-hmm. But I agree, so with the parameters, understanding the black and the white, now we can navigate the gray, right? And I think what you're saying is really, really important as far as we need to be able to set the emotions aside and be able to step back and objectively assess ourselves, right? So when someone dishes some criticism our way, we should be able to step back and say, are they right? Is it true? Right? And honestly assess it, right? And if we can't do that, if we're just dismissing, like you're saying, just ignore the haters, trying to listen to it. Well, what if they're right? What if it doesn't matter if they have our best interest in mind. What if they're right? And so I think you have one of two options. You just dismiss it, or one or two things that happens. If you step back and you objectively ask yourself, is it true? One or two things happens. One, if it's true, great. You can thank them, make the adjustments in your own life, and move on, right? Mm-hmm. Or if it's not true, then you can grow more confident in your current position and move on. Mm-hmm. And so I think that can be tough to do if our emotions get involved, right? We're like you said, we get pricked, we're hurt, our pride is hurt, or whatever it is, and that's not a helpful way to go about life at all. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good, man. Don't listen to the haters. All right, man. Last but not least, rush hour in every major city in the world. Billions of people. We know they're all listening to what not to do, right? On their drive home from work. And because they're in a traffic jam, they look up and they see a billboard. It's Jordan's billboard. What message do they see?
This is tough. I think I would put as a message, you are enough, period. I think too many people in today's society with social media, all these things once I get that car, once I get, the next promotion and all this, then I'll be enough. I'll be successful, whatever. I've had to really hone in through meditation, through other things of you are right where you need to be. Even if it doesn't feel right, you are enough at this moment, because happiness can only be found in the moment. It can't be found in the past or the future.
Yeah. That's good, man. Sometimes I hear that message thrown around, you are enough, and people mean it like as if to never grow or become something more. And that's not what you're saying.
Not at all.
You're saying don't lose the vision, don't lose the sights, but don't let the chasm between where you are now and where you want to be defeat you and conquer you now. Right? Enjoy the present, be thankful for who you are, who you've become, what you're working towards, and keep the vision.
Definitely.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, Jordan, this has been just a blast. Really, really enjoyed our conversation. If people want to hook up with you, connect with you, reach out to you, learn from you, do business with you, where can they find you?
LinkedIn, Jordan Ogren, and then I guess our website, stopthevanilla.com, would be the best place to find out about what I do, who I am, and kind of our organization.
Awesome. Very, very cool. All right, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Wow, another amazing story. I mean, when was the last time you stared death in the face, right? I hope that taking Jordan's story here to heart, that you as well as myself, that we can really just recall and recount how precious life is, and that we aren't wasting it in any capacity. We're giving our all. We're all in every moment of every day. So let's recap. Jordan told us the first thing: don't let your ego get in the way. 1.4 terabytes, right? Gone. So don't let your ego get in the way. Do what you need to do so you don't self-sabotage, right? Set up whatever precautions, whatever barrier systems in place so that you can hedge against your ego. 2, don't fly blind. Don't fly blind. Know where you're going. Be aware, and not just aware of where you're going, but aware of yourself. And last, don't keep your friends. Well, so let's just step back there for just a moment, right? Don't keep your friends, he says. No, seriously. Right? It's really important that we stop and take an honest look at who we spend our time with, right? Bad company corrupts good morals. So are we spending time in community that is actually helping us to become a better person, or are we slowly regressing and drifting into the worst version of ourselves? That's not good. So it's not an easy thing to do, but it's a really important thing to do. Don't keep your friends. Lose them all, or in that sense, find those that are going to help you to become the best that you can be, to live up to your true potential and capacity in this life. Well, I want to thank you so much for listening. And I love this part of the podcast because I get to remind you that this is for you. This is about you, and it's for you, and I love it. As I mentioned earlier, I want to be able to, I hope to be giving you more in use value than I'm taking from you in cash value, and I know right now you're not paying anything, which is great, so it makes the barrier of entry pretty easy. But in all seriousness, it's really important to me that I'm giving you so much value. So I hope that you're being helped by this. I hope you are getting that value indeed. If you are, share this with someone else. Share this with a friend. One way that you can really help us to do that is to give us a 5-star review on iTunes or the platform of your choice. That can be really, really helpful for us. And spread the word with your network. You can do that by sharing episodes or, again, reviews or whatever it might be, social media content. Speaking of which, connect with us there. That'd be awesome. We'd love to hear more from you. And we'd also love to hear who you want on What Not to Do, whose story that you want to unpack. Well, it's been said that good men learn from their own mistakes, but great men, they learn from the mistakes of others. So go and be great, and we'll see you next time.